Welcome to Field Notes Transformation. I'm Tara Marino. This is where we explore the science and the soul of what I call the unbecoming, the place where old identities fall away and something truer emerges. I've walked through collapse, addiction, codependency, and trauma, and each time, instead of breaking, I cracked open, and what emerged was healing, more nervous system regulation, a deeper awareness, and a spiritual awakening that rewrote my entire life from the inside out. Today, I work with leaders, practitioners, and seekers who are ready to shed who they've been and step into who they truly are. This is the messy, sacred middle. No masks, no bypassing, just truth, lived in the body, spoken from the heart. If you feel lost, take a breath. You are not broken, you are transforming. Welcome to the liminal. Let's begin. What if the pain you've spent years trying to outrun is actually the doorway to becoming who you were meant to be? Today's guest is Jaclyn Brown, a mental health advocate, speaker, and founder of Stay Golden, whose life was forever changed after she lost her brother to an overdose. Through grief, trauma, EMDR, and deep inner work, she has transformed unimaginable loss into a mission of healing and self-discovery. In this conversation, we dive into how unresolved grief can completely shape your identity, why so many women stay trapped in perfectionism, people-pleasing, and the mean girl mindset, what EMDR therapy actually feels like, and why it can unlock healing where years of talk therapy fall short, and how trauma, ADHD, and nervous system patterns can quietly drive the way we see ourselves, our relationships, and the world around us. If you've ever felt stuck in survival mode, questioned your worth, or wondered whether healing is really possible, this conversation will change the way you think about recovery, resilience, and transformation, and a lot more. All right. Today we have Jaclyn with us, and I'm so excited to sit with Jaclyn. And Jaclyn, how did we meet? It was through, go ahead.
It was through Caroline. It was one of her leadership calls that we were on. And I think everyone was just sharing what they do. And there were just a couple people on the call. I was like, damn, they're like really my vibe. And so I think that's how we found each other.
It was.
It's
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. I reached out to you, I think, via email, and then we started there, and I put you in my newsletter because your story
Yeah.
is really fascinating because you're not a woman in recovery. However, you're working on yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, so, and tell me about your journey. And I know that your brother, that you did lose your brother, and was
Yeah.
that, I'm sure that
It
was
was,
one of the defining things that
yeah.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It was, I always say that when my brother died of an overdose, which was November 16th, 2019, that like broke my brain. Because up until that point, I was the eldest daughter. I was the perfectionist. I was masking everywhere that I went. I was a people pleaser. So I was doing all the things to keep everybody happy and to stay busy all the time. So I don't have to think about all the other things that are not making me happy. And then when my brother died, it was literally like the facade, everything broke. And that was almost instant because within an hour, there were people on social media that were, again, because I'm from a small town. So it's like people had been to my house, they saw ambulances, they saw all the things. So people were already speculating. So it's like even in the time of grief, I didn't have time to grieve because immediately I'm pushed into fight or flight even further because I see these people starting to speculate, say very dismissive stuff about my brother. And it got to a point where, again, I got home, we were up for 24 hours, just obviously trying to process everything. And I had the weirdest conversation with my parents. And I was like, everyone on Facebook, on the internet, is speculating what happened. I feel like we need to say something for his friends who don't have contact with him. I feel like we need to say something. So it was so weird for me to ask my parents, can I say on Facebook that my brother died? It was just a very weird, out of body sort of situation. But as time went on, I found that instead of people being understanding and instead of people being compassionate, there was a lot of judgment and there was a lot of, oh, like I even saw comments. It was just like, oh, that's just another overdose, just very dismissive to who he was. And so for me, that ignited like anger. I'd never had anger on this level before. And so I wanted to stand up for my brother. So my first piece of advocacy was his eulogy. And I went into who he was, his life, and I wanted people to remember not the way that he died, but how he lived, how he made you feel. He's one of those people who could always find something in common with him. He could find something to relate to you with. He was totally the person that made everyone laugh. And so after the funeral, like that's when I don't think a lot of people realize everybody moves on except the family, except for the people who have been directly affected. And I went into my own, let me fill up my calendar and do all the things to not think about this. One of the suggestions I got from a friend who had lost her sibling about a year before was I would really recommend that you get into grief counseling. Because grief counseling for her, she's like, my alcohol usage got out of control. And I think it's something you might want to consider. And I got right into that. But my mentality, and I think sometimes a lot of our mentalities, if we're very, I'm going to say over functioning women, is how long is this going to take? And like, how can we wrap this up? Because I was like, okay, I need to process my grief, but I'd never grieved anything this large before. So for me, I'm like, okay, I just need to go through the counseling and all that. And in reality, that kind of unraveled everything else because then I started to uncover, oh, wait, this is nothing to do with grief. This actually has to do with me. And as time goes on, I don't think a lot of people realize you're going to grief counseling, but then it's stirring up a lot of emotions. You're seeing how other people are reacting. You're seeing how other people are grieving. And it truly, a big point for me that I thought I was going to be healed, which is so stupid, was I thought it was gonna be like a fucking Hallmark movie, okay? I thought it was like so it was about a week before the 1 year, and I hate saying anniversary, so I say the death day. So the day he died, it was a week before that, and I was asked by a national organization that I got involved in who did family advocacy, Shatterproof at the time. They asked me to speak at their LA event, and we're both from the LA area, from Santa Monica. I'm like, "This is a week before his death day. I'm gonna get to speak to him in our home city. This is gonna be this big deal." And I went up there's like 1,000 people, and I was like numb the whole time, just read it off, didn't cry, no emotions because I was nervous anyway. And afterwards, I was like, "Oh, that's so great, blah, blah, blah." And I felt so drained. Like I felt like everything I'd done the last year, like I'm expecting, okay, here's this big healing moment. And I felt like it was more real than ever. And that really messed with me, and I'd say about 6 weeks later, I ended up getting into the hospital for an autoimmune disease that I didn't know that I had. And for people who don't know, autoimmune diseases can really just lay dormant, and then stress is the thing that's gonna bring it out. And so that's exactly what happened, and I was forced to be with my own thoughts and my own everything I was taking dexamethasone, which is like prednisone on steroids, so it was like whatever triple, uh, power, and could not sleep, could not do anything. So it was like a week in the hospital of being like, can't sleep, running through everything in my head, and that's where I was like, "You know what? I give up. I can't control anything. I give up." I'm just going to accept that I can only control what I can control, and all this anxiety, all this, I'm done. I'm so exhausted. And it literally, and I don't know if you've gone through something like this, but for me, like once I had that realization, I'm like, I don't know if it's my bottom, but it was like I had lost everything. It was like my physical lowest, mental, emotional, spiritual lowest I'd ever been. And I finally was just like, you know what? Fuck this. I can't control everything. What can I control? And it became that sort of piece. Did you ever have a revelation like that? Like this point where I'm like, fuck it, I'm tired of my own shit. Like, I'm gonna do something about it.
And it's the clinging and it's the attachment to like and not being able to let go. And even
Mhm,
like you're getting sick and I did too last year. It was
mhm,
had anemia, I had to get an iron infusion, I had precancer symptoms. Oh yeah. And it was
mhm,
like, and it was the last 2 years when I was at Serenity House and I was keep continuously getting these messages like, you have to slow down, you have to stop. That's what illness is. When you're in a hospital bed, it's a sign saying, hey, you're in a
mhm.
hospital bed, you're infirmaried, like you need to stop. Like, and the universe is it's so benevolent that it does provide you those opportunities and it will keep continuously get louder and louder and louder until you finally listen. You know, so
Yes.
absolutely, I totally can identify with what you're saying is like that moment where you're just like you hit the concrete and you're like,
Yes.
all right, I'm awake. I'm paying attention. I'm listening.
Yes. And the big thing too is that everybody goes into this. We're all victims of something. And I was stuck in a victim mode for a very long time. I was very angry. I was so sad. I felt like no one could understand me. And grief is so isolating as it is that when you don't see other people around you grieving the way that you do, and you don't see other people around you like being as affected as you are, you begin to think, why is this all happening to me? Why is it just me? Everything's why. And I realized how toxic that mentality was because I looked at everything as there's a thing that's wrong with that. There's a thing that's wrong with that. And then it's like I realized, holy shit, my whole life, I have been trained and conditioned to look at something and go, what's wrong with that? Immediately criticize a thing. Because that we were talking about this before we started recording about the whole mean girl energy. This whole if when we were younger and it was like other women are your competition. Any other girl, if she's pretty, point out why she's not pretty immediately. These were little weird tactics that you pick up on from other girls. Again, this is at a fucking young age where it's like, oh, look at her shoes, look at this, look at that. And then you start to realize, oh shit, y'all are hyper focusing on things that I don't even look at. But then you get trained to look at these things because maybe you're not feeling confident in yourself. And I'm not gonna lie about who I was. I was overweight. And so when I saw other women who were beautiful and could wear whatever they wanted and whatever, I had this internal like jealousy, envy, and it would come out as just this bitchiness. Oh my God, how can she wear that? How can she do this? Because I was so fucking uncomfortable with it. I was projecting, I wish I could be fucking you. I wish I looked hot as you did. But I don't feel that way. And I don't know if enough women are taking that time to sit there and go, wait, why am I shitting all over this person who's like, everybody else isn't, but I am. So maybe I'm the problem. And understanding that sometimes when our gut reaction, if someone's just like, hey, I'm pretty, and our gut reaction is to find something wrong with them, you feel threatened, you feel intimidated, you feel something. So you need to, for yourself, you're coping. You're like, I need to drop this bitch down a little bit to my level. And that's so toxic. I hate it.
Yes, and I do too. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest culprits is social media. And I
Mhm.
will be scrolling through social media and I will hear a voice. And
Yeah.
I've been doing the work though, and it's like, no, I'm not buying into that. Like why her, right? And
Yeah.
it's like that is not me. And it's because
No.
I have grown to a point where I know that if I celebrate another woman's win, that I'm actually celebrating a future win for me too. And that's how
Yeah.
I've been able to create the things that I've been able to create. But I will say that the more I've been able to, work on myself and, manifest and,
Yeah.
create these really
Mhm.
beautiful things, that the
Mhm.
hate that comes through and the people that want to humble you,
Oh my
it is
God.
it is so wild to me. And I am so like hyper aware of it now. And I'm so very protective, more protective than I ever been.
Yes, and that's a thing too is that I'm very open about who I am, and I would just word vomit on the internet because guess what? No one else was listening to me. So after my brother died, like Facebook was almost my diary. Like Facebook, Instagram was my diary because I'd never seen anyone accurately like describe grief. Usually someone's like, "Oh, so this person gone. Hope they're in a better place." And then there's all these flowery little things and all this bullshit. And I was like, I hate fucking going to Starbucks. I hate talking to people in the drive-thru. I don't want you to smile at me. I don't want to hear about your shit. I don't want to hear how happy you are. And for me at that point it was grief. As it went on, it was like, oh shit, like this is my mental health. And mind you, this was 2020. So obviously, I think 2020 was a huge point for everyone. I don't think people realize how much PTSD we all have from that. No one wants to talk about the grief associated with that or what we have carried, these little mannerisms, like artifacts in the store, like the 6 foot sticker. And I'm like, how the fuck was that 6 years ago? And it's these moments where it's like, okay, that year really fucked me up. And that specifically made me realize that this is not grief anymore. This is my own like this is me inside, because it wasn't like I wish I would have died instead of my brother. It was, I just want to die. I don't think I should be here. I bring nothing to this world. And it was like 2 months of this. Every day it was like this struggle. And it got to the point where I'm like, I'm not in a good spot. And I don't think this is grief anymore. And so I decided to seek professional help, and I decided to seek out someone who could diagnose me. And one thing I will say is I already knew I had anxiety. I'm an anxious bitch. I've always been anxious. So like I knew that. And so that wasn't a surprise. And complex PTSD, which in America is technically not diagnosed because the DSM doesn't think complex trauma is real, whatever. So complex trauma though, because I've gone through a lot of different random things in my life. But then she had said depression, which to me it seemed, accurate at the time. But I will say that after about a year of being on medication, and I'm also the type of person where I want to try things holistically before I resort to any sort of medication. I had my own stigma against medication, especially based on my brother's experience, because he got into a car accident and he was in a wheelchair for a couple months. So they gave him all the oxy. And so I know there's a lot of stories that are like that, but as time went on, he went on to misuse Xanax and all the things. So for me, medication, prescription medication was so top of mind for me. And I had my own stigma around him. I don't want to be fake happy. I don't want to be fake whatever. Like this is what I'm thinking is I'm going to put on a show. Like, bitch, you've been putting on a show the whole time, actually. Like this is what you've been doing the whole time. So it was time for me to have this acceptance, because I did try natural, like homeopathic routes to try and help. It didn't work. And so my brand of neurodivergence is I'm going to test and take notes for myself, see what's helping me, what's not. And about a year later, after being on medications, yes, antidepressants pulled me out of the hole. And then I just sat on the edge of the hole and I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, what are we doing? I still don't have motivation to get up. So went back to my doctor and she's like, yeah, so it seems a lot more like ADHD. And when my ADHD is not managed, it shows as depression. And I went, no, this doesn't make sense. I remember everything. I know where everything is in that pile of shit. I could tell you exactly where it is. And she's like, how many piles do you have? I'm like, I don't need you to call me out like this right now. But I did not realize that ADHD, because you're so used to inattentive. I pay too much attention. I'm hyper vigilant. So I was like, that's not me. Hyperactive. And I was like, yeah, I don't jump around. I love to lay on the couch. I love to sleep. I love to take a little nappy. And she's like, no, your brain's hyperactive. And I'm like, I thought that was anxiety. And she was like, then she asked me to describe what's my running train of thought. She's like, yeah, that's ADHD. I'm like, okay. So a lot of my shit too came from a lot of people go, why did you need a diagnosis? Like, why does it matter? Because so much of my life, I thought there's all these things wrong with me. I just wasn't getting it. And it turns out my brain just doesn't get it like other people. And there's a very different acceptance of, I just can't master that skill because I don't know how to build a boat. I'm just not a good boat builder. But versus, yeah, my brain's not wired to take in instructions or take in direction in that way. So it's not that I'm stupid. It's just that I need the information relayed to me in a way that's going to grab me. And that was honestly for me, my mental health was like the biggest piece to unlocking this away from this mean girl energy, away from this victimhood.
Neurodivergence, that is definitely, and there's more light being shed on neurodivergence because I am too. So ADHD, like I'm the girl that would snort the Ritalin and then it would super calm me down. It wouldn't get me high. It wouldn't get me high like everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew, right? Like, oh, yeah, definitely. However, like despite like the diagnosis that I had too, and all of the things with ADHD, what I truly believe is that a lot of these are rooted in that because complex trauma is closely related to autistic symptomology. And yes.
The symptoms are on top of each other. They're like sleeping together. And so that's why I was like, what do you mean? And there's a very few, like, there's like nuanced things that are slightly different, but they're all the same. It's just all one bucket of shit. So I was like, this wasn't, now that I know more about it, it makes tons of sense. But at the time, it did not compute for me.
Absolutely. I mean, so absolutely, like with the ADHD and the complex trauma and this whole like trying to heal and trying to
Yeah.
figure out like why do I do the things that I do? What makes me
Yes.
tick? But I do believe in what you're really onto is, the grief. And you were talking about like facing this thing. And I want to circle
Yeah.
back to the grief because it is an interesting thing because if people truly were feeling their emotions or feeling or tapping in, we would see people crying everywhere.
Yes. Yes. It's wild to me how much, and I notice it now, how often people will apologize for starting to cry. How often people will apologize immediately for showing any emotion. I'm like, nope, nope. You feel what you need to feel. But growing up, were we told to rein in our emotions? We were told not to be so emotional, don't be so this. It made me realize I've always been a sensitive person. I've always been an empath. I've always been someone who is very in touch with things, very intuitive. And even when I was younger, my I had a Nintendo and my I would cry every time Mario died. Like when it was game over, I'm like, I killed him. I didn't mean to kill him. And I'd start crying. So my dad was probably like, oh my God. Like I used to watch, this is normal, King Kong Lives all the time as a 4-year-old, but on the cover of the VHS tape, he had red eyes, but it scared me. So my dad put white out over the eyes so it wouldn't scare me. I was always a very sensitive person. It wasn't until I got into an abusive relationship in my teenage years and into my college years where my sensitivity was used against me. It gave them power, it fueled them to keep going. And then I had to develop a new version of me, which I call lawyer Jaclyn, who is not going to back down. She has the receipts, she has all the things, but that meant I needed to shut off emotions. And so for about, I'd say 20, damn, actually think about it. I'd say about 15 to 20 years, my emotions were being tempered in some way. They were numbed, and I did not realize how much of my emotions I had been holding back simply because we have been conditioned all around to not show emotions.
And that is the crux of what we're dealing with is that we have such an unhealthy relationship with feeling, and that's where addiction is born. Right?
Yes.
It's because you do not want to feel. You're so terrified of feeling something because you feel that it will never stop, that there's no
Yes.
end to the emotion. And that's
Emotional.
why I do teach what I teach is emotional mastery and how to sit with your emotions and let them flow without stopping it and without being in great fear of what is behind you. It's your emotional state and for and it's difficult because there's this concept of the dark night of the soul
Mhm.
that has been, through spiritual texts and all of that stuff. And what I know from my path in recovery from not only substances, which is just the beginning, it's
Yeah.
relationship that is really has caught me and trying to, have healthy relationships and undo what has been taught through society and your familial relations
Mm.
to be able to, you know, feel and surrender to that dark night of the soul and to start to really process those emotions and not be afraid of pain anymore essentially
Yeah.
and to know that the pain is truly a catalyst and I don't like that's a hill I will die on is that is that the pain is the doorway through and if we
Yes.
can just support each other through the grieving process and open up spaces where we're not trying to fix, not throw tissues at you as you're crying, just like sitting there and
Yeah.
letting those beautiful salty tears fall and to
Yes.
not, and to be able to witness that human being having that and witness ourselves, though. That is
That's the
how,
biggest thing, the self-compassion. Like, now it's not fully self-compassionate, but I used to have 0 I could have compassion for anybody else around me, but for me, "You fucking idiot, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why are you crying? Why are you so upset?" Like, all this internal self-talk was so negative, and it was to the point where it's like it changed how I was viewing other people. Like, to go back to like mean girl shit. If I'm talking to myself like that, why am I going to give you a compliment? You know what I mean? Like, why am I going to sit here and gas you up when I can't even gas me up? And it's one of those things where people don't realize you have to practice compassion. You have to practice compliments. You have to practice noticing people and gratitude. And for me, it started just with like comments. And I've always been a person who is a cheerleader. I cheer everyone on, but then I became very intentional. It wasn't like, hey, good job. It was like, I really appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing that because that would have been really hard. I want to know people, I'm seeing them because I know how fucking hard it is to create a podcast. I know how hard it is to do all these things where you're putting yourself out there. You don't know if anyone's going to take to it. You don't know if anyone's going to listen. You don't know anything, but you are so confident in where you are in your life, in your stance, and to pause and go, shit, I don't know if I've ever been this confident. And I can like actually stand up for something and not waver if someone comes in and says, what about this? Because there's a lot of times when you're people pleasing, you're like, oh, I never really thought about it. No, this is who I am. And I think what can be hard though is that when women start to heal, especially 30s, 40s, whatever it might be, unhealed women will it's more obvious who is not healed. Let's just say that because you still see that high school behavior. You still see that mean girl behavior, the passive aggressive comments. I will travel for work. Guess what, everyone? I pay for my own shit. It goes on a credit card that I still have to pay. And then people are like, whoa, aren't you a jet setter? I'm like, shut the fuck up. I'm like scraping for money here. But it's like the perception that they have is I live this big glamorous life according to them, but in reality, it's rooted in a lot of weird jealousy, and I'm not really sure what it is, but there seems to be something that can be very, very triggering to unhealed women from women who are trying to heal, who are trying to be confident and open with their emotions.
Absolutely. And I'll just one thing that I had come up and it bothers me just a little tiny bit. So I have this Camaro. It's a 2014 Camaro. I
Uh-huh.
take care of it. I store it. Like I make sure that's like clean, right?
Pristine,
And
yeah.
yes, and I love that car. It's my I bought that car. My husband co-signed for that car. I paid that car off because
Yep,
I worked my ass off. I worked my ass on my
yep,
ass off on my credit score, like everything. And I
yeah,
had nothing when I started this. I was living in the
yeah,
projects, addicted, just
yeah,
and people fail. And it's just, it really drives me nuts because these certain women that I worked with after I left that organization, there was a running joke about how Tara bought that Camaro on the organization's money and just really like dogging me for the things that I had created and I had built. And as I'm saying this, it's just that is what drives me crazy because and I've said this before, how I was able to get that was because I was celebrating other women's stuff and I was taking care of the things that I already had before. I didn't have a nice car before, but I knew if I took care of that car and I cleaned that car, that I would eventually get a different car that I really wanted. And it
yes,
stood the test of time and I waited and I had patience. And
yeah,
though, yep, and it's rooted in jealousy and it's and I still hear it once in a while, but it's not of me. And I know that it's not of me. And I
yeah.
wish that more women would get this and they would heal and stop hurting other women and hurting
Mhm.
each other. It's so damaging and it's so, yeah,
And
go
and
ahead.
and and typically the mindset that they're coming from is a fear or scarcity mindset. It's always something about, I don't have that. I lack that. I'm afraid to try that. I'm afraid to whatever. So I find so often the best part of healing is I can clock shit immediately now and the anxiety doesn't take it and go, hey, let's stew on this for 6 days. Now I can clock it and go, that's a fucking projection because I never said those words. Because it's interesting, I did a pre-launch of a workshop yesterday that's literally derived from this whole concept because it's called Unfuck Your Filter. And it came from marriage counseling. So me and my husband, very proudly, people who are like, hey, you've been in marriage counseling for this long? Yeah, because things evolve and time evolves. So we've been in marriage counseling since 2020, because that's another thing. When you're working on your mental health, it's going to affect every relationship around you that's close to you. And what I realized is that we both had these filter problems where if I said to him, say, for example, "Hey, did you take the trash out?" He heard, "You fucking idiot. You forgot to take the trash out again." Immediate shame, immediate everything. And then there was like, here's a long story. So when I went to work, I'm like, I don't fucking care. Did you
I
take it
know.
out or not? And that's the autism side. I just need the facts, bro. I'm not here to shame you. I'm not here to do anything. Yes or no. So I know what I need to do next. But
Yes.
I'm triggering him unknowingly. Now he can ask me something. So say I'm doing something and he's just asking, he's like, "Oh," he's like, "Why'd you pick that font?" I would take it as, "Do you not like this font? Is there something wrong with the font?" He's just curious why specifically that font. So that's his side. And so we don't realize how much our filters, like in our heads, we're taking whatever, let's flip this and then relay something totally different. And once I realized, holy shit, there's someone in my head who's literally taking like my mail and going, cross it out. They're writing their new shit down and they're just sending it over. Okay, here's the note that they sent you. And I'm like, this isn't what they said. When you start to realize that, like that was mind blowing, not only for our relationship, but for myself. Because that's when I started to realize, holy shit, all this mean girl negative energy, whatever that I had, or this jealousy, was because of this bitch in my head who kept going, "Oh, a girl can be pretty, and I can say that she's pretty." But I think my insecurity, I had insecurity with my weight. I had insecurity with just my overall appearance because I was always such a cool friend to dudes. And then women love to have me as their emotional support friend, but it's where am I as just me, where I'm also pretty, I'm also funny, I'm this, and I'm not serving a purpose for all these people. And that's the hardest part is like seeing what we have to offer and being proud of that. And if women understood, which they should, how hard it is to be openly proud of yourself. Like when I see them, fuck yes, you know how hard it is to get there and not feel like about it.
Yep, that is definitely what I still 20 years, it's been like 18 years since I started this healing path. So caring what other people think about me. And I'm still,
Yes.
it's so ingrained, but I still put myself out there. I'm in
Yes.
recovery and like but I still retract at times and, shining my light. I walk into a room, people look, and I start to
Yeah.
shift the energy. Who's she? What is she doing? And then you get the other. I just recently walked into a birthday party and it was wild. Most of the women in there retracted from me and was even talking to. And it was a great learning experience and a lesson. I was in a
Wow.
dive bar in Flint, Michigan.
Oh,
So
I
it
was just
was
gonna say,
like,
so like
and
record stop.
it's like, yeah. So, and I was dressed to the nines. I wanted to dress up and I wanted to
Yeah.
look really good. And I was testing the waters, like, okay. And I got exactly what I thought I was going to get. And it just really shone even a greater light on what I'm dealing with and to just continue to smile. And I
Mhm.
started having conversations and one of the girls had told my friend, she was like, she was actually really nice and completely judged me just based on the way that
Yes.
I looked.
We are like the same because do you know how often I will hear, "No, I thought you were gonna be a bitch, but you are so sweet." And I'm like, I don't know if that's a compliment or not. But in reality, it's like I'm observing. I have learned that I will vomit myself everywhere to just have you love me. Let me do everything I want you to love me. In this era, I'm very observant of who I'm gonna let into my energy and who I wanna throw it out to because I'm fucking tired. So I'm not gonna put on a show for you to get you to love me. I'm just gonna show up as I am. The problem is that when sometimes I might show up as I am, and yeah, like you said, I'm dressed to the nines because now I'm using what I wear as creative expression as well. Because with this whole journey as well, I have lost weight. Did I lose weight through any of the means that I tried in the past, like dieting, hardcore? No, none of it. It was EMDR. EMDR and the reduction of my cortisol because I went through a whole test because I was like, hey guys, I don't lose weight. And I know you guys keep telling me to try all these things. So I would go through the thing. Here's my filter. I already know you're going to tell me I'm fat. So let me go ahead and tell you what I already know. I know I should do this. I know I need to limit this. And it's still not working. And so finally, I had a doctor that was like, okay, we should do a cortisol test. I was like, holy fuck, someone heard me, a woman. Thank you. Go through the testing of high cortisol. Go through, they're like, you have high cortisol. I'm like, I fucking knew it. I knew it. I knew it. What do I need to do? They're like, you need to just lower your stress. And I'm like, Okay. That's not tangible. That's not anything I can do. But that's when I started EMDR. And so much of what we are holding on to is causing inflammation, is causing all this shit in our body. And so it's like to see then weight naturally fall off when I take a very specific approach. I'm not going to focus on my eating. I'm not going to focus on my diet. I'm not going to focus on any of that. I'm focusing on my mental health, and then I'll deal with the physical later. Turns out they kind of go hand in hand.
So do.
And as time has gone on, I've become more confident in how I am. Now, am I still plus size? Yes. Am I still 18 to 20? Yes. That makes people uncomfortable. A confident, larger woman, whew, that's another level of I didn't expect that. But it's insane because it's, do you know how much I've struggled to even like myself my whole life? And so for me, again, I see someone like you at a party where I'm like, oh my God, look at her outfit. Now it's, oh my God, where'd you get that? I'm just automatically gonna give the compliments, give the gratitude, do that because I'm like, fuck, it would just be so nice to have that done. So it's like this, again, I named my business after something my brother used to say, which was stay golden, which is off of the golden rule, but saying you don't know what someone's gone through. You don't know what they've been through. You don't know their story. Just treat people how you want to be treated. Treat with kindness and curiosity. And that's what I've adopted really since he's passed. And it's something that, kind of like you mentioned, it's take this everywhere that I go and I show up like that. I just don't know how people are going to receive it. And that's the other thing too.
And that is their stuff and their projections and their reactions and their emotions. And I think both, as you've been talking to, is part of the problem of being an empath is we often take responsibility for the way other people are feeling.
Yes, we always take that on because we'll feel it. I understand if someone doesn't feel seen in their marriage or they don't feel seen in general. I understand what it's like where no one, everyone dismisses what you might have to say. So I understand. And I think there's a lot of times where we can't put ourselves in that person's position and understand that, God, this person's so annoying. They keep talking. Maybe they're not heard at home. Maybe they don't have any. Maybe this is the only time of day. Yes, am I going to get fucking annoyed with people? Obviously. I am neurodivergent. I have my overwhelm limits. I have my overstimulation limits. But I've really adjusted my focus from not automatically assuming someone's doing this to be annoying, to piss me off. You know what I mean? Like, that's a very victim way to look at things. You're doing this just to grind on me? No, that's just someone existing. That's it.
Yep, and that victimization too, like that's another like facet of our conversation is people are perpetually stuck in the victim role. And I know because I was also stuck in the victim role. Like
Yeah.
everything was happening to me and oh my gosh, rather than really truly embodying that things happen for you. Just like we said,
Yes.
earlier in the conversation, I had this massive rupture and it was a signal, benevolent universe saying it's time to stop. And if we
Yes.
if we could really understand that and take control of our own sphere of energy and what we're putting out and what's coming back
Yes.
to us, that
Mhm.
is where we become empowered and that this world gets a lot easier to maneuver and
It really
to
does.
it does. This healing path, it becomes easier in some ways to navigate because you know you're not going to die from feeling this emotion.
Yes. That's it. You've gone through the shit. And there are times where I'm like, and this is very dark humor and very grotesque, but sometimes I have to go, you literally have seen your brother dead in a coffin. What are you fucking afraid of right now? That was literally the most terrifying moment of my life. And yet I'm afraid to post this video on social media because I'm potentially worried about some people might think I'm too confident. Fuck this. What are you doing? So now there's like the person in my head's like, no, bitch, you need to send it. You need to put it out there, which is great. But also, like you said, it still comes up. There's still always going to be hesitancy to put our energy out there because we know it's limited. And so now I protect it like I protect money. Like I had a bad relationship with money in the sense of was the scarcity mindset. I need more. I don't have enough because that's how I've always lived. That's how I was raised. But once I have switched that, hey, there's enough for everyone. There's enough for and just constantly just having that mindset. There are just moments where it's like, oh shit, I forgot I did this thing and the check just dropped in my account. And that used I would be like, who forgets money? me because it's no longer the focus. The focus is where am I putting my energy? And if I receive something back, that's awesome. If it's money, even better. But maybe it's just I have now a friend, or maybe I now have a connection or someone I can talk shit with when it comes to this topic or whatever it might be. But like you said, everything's an exchange of energy. I just now know put mine out there. I'm more mindful of how I put it out there.
That is the true definition of abundance. And it's not
Yes.
just about money, it's about
Yes.
people, things, experiences, all of that. So I love that you
Yes.
said that. But one thing I want to hear more about is your journey with EMDR.
So I always feel like I'm that person who's like this one time at band camp because I'm like, oh, an EMDR. So I feel like but when people ask me, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk about this. So for people who don't know, EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And it's a type of therapy that's typically recommended for people who have PTSD, complex PTSD. And it's truly a way for you to take these life experiences that you have and you take these, what they're called core beliefs. So, what you'll do is you will have a target of a core belief, so to speak. So, the one I literally just finished. So, you clear targets, which is different from CBT because you get something done. You're like, we're going to clear this target. And so, the most recent one that I just cleared, which relates to abundance, is I don't deserve anything more. I should be happy with what I have, and I'm not worth anything better, more effort, more anything. And what they do is they tell you to target a memory where you first felt that. And you constantly keep going back to this memory, and they really talk about what's your level of disturbance, which sounds so scientific or whatever, but they're trying to gauge of like when you think about this thought, how does it affect you? Do you feel it in your body? So you're really being forced to feel your emotions. So if someone, the first thing that I decided to tackle in EMDR, which I thought I'm like, this should be pretty easy. She's like, we could start with something less traumatic. I was like, I'm good on this. I was the victim of a home invasion once. I was at home by myself and someone kicked down my bedroom door. Shit went crazy. A bunch of shit was stolen from my brother's room. But again, no one was home but me. And then when we got back in the house, there was like a knife outside my bedroom door. And it was just all of this shit where everyone immediately said, oh, thank God you're okay. Physically, yes, physically, nothing happened to me. So I thought I was okay. I was like, we could start with this. And she's like, it's pretty traumatic. And I'm like, I'm fine. I just don't watch movies like where there's home invasions or robberies or anything like that. No, I wasn't fine, turns out, because so much of this is related to other things. My hypervigilance, yeah, that comes from that. Something as silly as if I'm going to go somewhere, I want to know if there's parking. I want to, so this is also, is this trauma or neurodivergence? I want to know if there's parking. I want to know what's on the menu. I don't want any surprises. I don't want to be surprised in any way, shape, or form. So while a lot of people are like, I love surprise, I fucking hate surprises. I'm like, I better have some idea of what's going on. So when you start to do EMDR, it brings up a lot of shit. And a lot of us have also compartmentalized a lot of our trauma. So, especially around that abusive relationship, that was the biggest uncovering in that process because I had neatly boxed it away and said, this was a toxic relationship, but we're better as friends. I put it on the shelf and I'm like, that's what it is. In reality, no, it was abusive. And I did not know that because I had told myself that this was just toxic. And in the end, I dealt with all of this for what? Nothing. So I didn't want to look stupid and be like, this person ended up being with someone else. And I dealt with all of this abusive behavior that all my friends called out in front of me. And all of them said, you need to fucking leave. But I didn't. But I can't look dumb. So I'm going to be his friend to be the bigger person. And then it started to make me realize how often in life where I shrunk myself down or made myself digestible in order to carry a charade on just because my ego and my pride did not want to look like the fucking idiot who dealt with abuse for all these years and still didn't get married to that person, didn't anything. Um, it's been the hardest to go through simply because, like I said, it brings up memories, things I had locked away, but it also brings up memories that are really good memories that I had just totally forgotten about from my childhood. And it's been over 3 years now. A lot of people would say that's a long time. I have been taking my time because I also have never discussed any of this in detail with anyone in the last 20 years. And another piece that we incorporate with it is something called parts work. And I don't know if you have done that or you're familiar, but it's something from the internal family systems model. And it's just to some people, when without describing it, they think I have like multiple personalities. And I'm like, no, there's just different parts of me that like were born out of certain events. So, like I had mentioned earlier, lawyer Jaclyn, she was created because of all the abuse I'd received in my relationship. So EMDR has forced me to confront and sit in the shadow for a very long time, sorting through a lot of shit because I was truly in the dark as to why am I reacting so strongly to this? Why is this affecting me so much? This isn't even my shit. Why does this bother me? And EMDR really forces you to pinpoint in your body how you're feeling, pinpoint how certain things make you feel. And once you start to connect the things again, your emotions, your body, everything, because I was queen of dissociation. I could dissociate 10 minutes from now. Like if I'm in the middle of something, if something uncomfortable starts to happen, I may start to dissociate because I have learned that's a safety mechanism for me. It's not for people who want a quick fix. It's not for people who um, are afraid of potentially what might come up. I know there are people who've gone through far scarier, worse things than I have gone through. So I can't even imagine some things that might be repressed or buried. But I think if you are someone who you have done a lot of work, all the therapies, but you still feel like DR was like, I literally got fired by a therapist. She's like, you're too self aware and you have a lot of trauma that you are barely brushing over. And I think you need to do EMDR. And I was like, I literally just got fired by a therapist for being too self aware. But it was the best thing she could have done because it was very hard to confront all of that. Like you mentioned, confronting the shadow side of yourself is very hard. Very hard.
Extremely difficult because it seems easier to project that shadow
Yeah.
onto other people. So you don't have to
Yeah.
look at yourself. And it is incredibly painful. But I will say, too, with my journey with EMDR, which I've spent about 3 years, too, working with the
Okay.
therapist.
Yeah.
However, there are other, like, it's inner child work, essentially. It
Yes.
is shadow work. It's
Yes.
somatic therapy. It's the
Mhm.
body keeps the score. It's where does it live in the body. And what I will add to what you beautifully described is
Thank you.
that you will keep attracting situations in your life, different players, but it feels exactly the same.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
because it's emanating from you, and this is like my vibration that from you that is attracting these circumstances so you can take a look finally at what's caused at the root or those
Yeah.
boxes that you've compartmentalized and start to open those one by one and to start extract that energy, if you will, and to transmute it, those feelings, to feel those feelings and integrate that aspect of yourself. And Native Americans call this also soul retrieval. They
Uh,
believe that a part of your soul breaks off when you experience a traumatic experience, and
mm,
that practices like EMDR recall that part of yourself back
mm,
to you to be able to
yeah.
become whole. And
Yeah.
this is my first time talking about EMDR on the podcast, and it's
Oh, no
something
way.
that, yeah, that I wanted to have somebody who is actually like walking the path with it so that people understand that this is next level healing and this
Yeah.
is, you know, talk therapy, it's got its place, but I just think that talk therapy, it's you keep talking yourself into this like spiral. And this
Yes.
is
And
not
it's
this is not that. Yeah, go ahead.
I almost feel like it can sometimes just push you more towards it's okay to intellectualize everything because that's what I was doing. Where it's like, I don't need to feel the emotion. I understand why they wouldn't have invited me. I totally get it. Hey, bitch, you're allowed to be hurt. You invited them to all your shit and they didn't invite you to you. You're allowed to be hurt. But it's finally that what got me there was EMDR of I finally understood, oh wait, I deserved better. I deserved better treatment. And I think that's once you realize that and you start to get angry about that, because you are recognizing finally me, I deserve something better, that's when you really start to heal things because you are recognizing yourself as someone who is worthy of being invited to the fucking thing, or is someone who is worthy of being told they're loved or whatever it might be. And again, as hard as it's been, I also like people who have gone through EMDR. I'm like, there's a different level of like deep conversation you can have. There's a different level of just knowing and understanding you can have with someone because they've done the work and they know it's like, it ain't fun. None of this was fun.
Yeah, it's definitely far from it's the ugly cry, right? It is like getting into like those things that are very, you know, the whole like, crying,
Mhm.
and we talked about this earlier, is to be able to sit with yourself and not want to stop the crying or judge you as you're doing that. And that's what EMDR would really help with. Now, what would you tell somebody who's listening to the podcast? Like they're listening to this, they're resonating with EMDR. What's something that you would suggest if they decide that this is the path that they want to walk? Anything that you've learned through your own path of to do or not to do?
I would say that jumping right into EMDR sounds very scary to me, like the idea of let's jump right into the trauma. So it might be something where you do some other lesser if you've done no sort of exploration of your shit or what bothers you, I wouldn't necessarily recommend jumping right into EMDR simply because that can bring up a lot of stuff. And if you haven't already been going through a process of sorting through your shit, some shit might surprise you. Again, with repressed things, all of that. I think what people need to also understand when you hear the 3-year thing, I like when you said that, I was like, thank God someone else like is spent years. But the amount of time it took to build up that trauma, to build up these walls, to build up all of these ideas, it's going to take time to take that down. And so we live in a world of instant gratification. If Amazon isn't giving this to me in fucking 4 hours, I don't want it. Even though I need it, I want it faster than that. So it's like we live in this world of instant gratification, instant healing. We want it instantly. And yet we want people to have patience with us. No, you have to have patience with yourself first and understanding that unfucking all these things is going to take time because it's literally like one of those yarn balls where it's like, here's all your shit. And you're like, which string do I pull at first? And that's really what it is. There was an image I saw once of therapy where it was like the therapist and the person in the chair. Person in the chair had a ball of yarn all fucked up in their head, and the therapist was like pulling at the string. And I think that's like the perfect example because that's what they do is they help pull at the strings. Do not use your friends as your therapist. Do not use your family as your therapist. I get we all want to vent. Please don't fucking trauma dump on your friends. I'm sorry, that was just a total side note. But people who are healing, we are not therapists. Yes, we have done the work. That is not an invitation for you to trauma dump on us so we can solve your problem because that's typically the mode we love to jump into is to help solve your problem, but a professional has to be one, someone that's not biased, someone that doesn't have all these, yeah, you're right, I could see why Steve would do this. No, they can't know Steve, they can't know anybody, they can't know any of that. They need to have a not bias, but also be able to challenge you. I think that's another thing. Challenge you in a way where you don't feel attacked, depending on your level of healing. But also, you don't want someone who's just going to be like, sounds like you have it figured out. That's not a fucking therapist, just for the record. Anyone who thinks, oh, my therapist is so nice. Every time we have a great conversation, we talk about things and everything's cool. Your therapy is not therapy then. You have a friend that you meet up with for an hour. That's not therapy. So I would definitely adjust your expectations in terms of the time frame it's going to take because understanding yourself and how many times have you talked about this thing? You haven't? Okay. It's going to take a little longer to bring it all out. And then two, climbing up the ladder, I think diving right in, which is typically my mentality. I think it really just depends on what you are dealing with or struggling with. I think I am a go big or go home, but not when it comes to EMDR. I think it's one of those things where if you have not even done that searching or exploring, start there. Start with a professional. Your friends are not your therapists. You can vent. I love to like I've discovered my healing and then having a chat and being like this is what I discovered. Love that. But helping you sort through it, I won't do that anymore because I take that on and I can't do that and that's a boundary I have.
That and that is a boundary, and that's why And I'll just say, like, any kind of conversation I have, I ask people if they have the space or the time to
Yes.
talk about, yeah, something that's more, there's more depth
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
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 So I love that. Jaclyn, it's been so awesome sitting with you. And I'm so glad that we finally had this conversation.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
Tell us how people can get in touch with you, because I know you do offer consulting. So tell us about your
Yes.
services.
Yes, my business is called Stay Golden Coaching and Consulting. So, on the coaching side, what I really like to focus on is like small group workshops. I find that a lot of healing, a lot of stuff can be done just with the perspectives of other people and just talking it out because I'm a verbal processor. So, I do have workshops that I offer that are around personal, professional empowerment. But then I also do leadership and I call it camaraderie building. I know people want to say team building. I think camaraderie is needed right now. I can have a team, but if I don't have a connection or anything to you, then I'm just like, okay, I'll cut you off at the door. But my focus is really around those things, empowerment, like you had mentioned before. I want people to be the best version of themselves, to feel like they're strong enough to advocate for themselves or for their organizations, whatever that might look like. So you can go to my website. It is Stay Golden Jaclyn, JACLYN.com. You can see a list of some of my stuff there. And then you can email me, jkb at staygoldenjaclyn.com. And I have a TikTok and all that shit's linked on there. I'll give you my link tree. I just realized I could have just said that. I could have given a link tree.
No, it's
But
good.
yeah, yeah, if
Yeah.
anyone wants to check that out. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure I drop that in the description when we put it on the platform. So, but again, thank you so much for spending time with me. It's been a treat.
Yeah.
You're an amazing woman, and I can't wait to
You
get to know you
too.
more.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.